Well, happy holidays, everybody. Dave Stevens here, and I am at the home offices here in Bristol, Connecticut, doing solo today. Troy Geary has been stuck. He's stuck in the snow confines up there in the Midwest where they're getting hammered with all this tough weather. But hey, we've got a fun show today, and I'm so excited to bring in my guest today. It's been a while since we've talked, and I could explain who he is and talk about his amazing career. But while I talk about his amazing career, we'll show a little bit, of course. Chris Long joining us, the former Philadelphia Eagle, former St. Louis Ram, former New England Patriot, two-time Super Bowl champion, Walter Payton Award winner in 2018, and just a really all-around good guy. And Chris, I'm really glad to have you here for a few minutes to just kind of talk football as we kind of look at some of your career highlights over the years. Do you feel like it was just yesterday you were still playing?
Yeah, it does. It's really first off, great to see you, Dave. And happy holidays, buddy. But and you look festive. But yeah, it's funny, sometimes it's kind of like a time warp. It feels like it was just yesterday. But it's going on 5 years now. And I do miss it sometimes. It was a great chapter of my life. But I had a dad who played a long time, and he told me towards the end, he's like, "Just try to soak it in and enjoy it, because it is gonna feel like a blip on the radar screen of your life." And it really does. It's starting to. But I'm loving doing what I'm doing now, podcasting, and I get to talk to people like you, and life's not too bad.
Well, when we reminisce and we look about your old teams and the successes, that they had with you, and again, back-to-back Super Bowls. Not a lot of guys can say that. I think LeGarrette Blount came with you for that, and that was kind of fun.
Oh,
But
gee, yeah.
it's been such a pleasure to get to know you over the years and just to see who you are, off the field more than
Right.
who you were on the field. And I think it's I really appreciate that relationship and friendship that we've
Well,
had. And
thanks, Dave.
so we're just going to talk some football today and have some fun. And first off, though, I got to ask, and I'm just going to bring this play up right now because I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. Your thoughts on the crazy breakdown of this play, the last play of the Patriots game when you feel like you're just going to take a knee going to overtime. I mean, what do you think was going through their brains when this play took place?
Oh, I don't know, Dave. I mean, it's been almost 4 days now, and, I just can't get it out of my head. I can't figure out, what Jacoby Meyer was thinking. He's one of their most heads up players. He's one of their best players. He's somebody that I know Bill feels like he can depend on. I don't know if it was the fact that Stevenson pitched him the ball and he didn't expect it, and so he went into this mode of, "Hey, we're doing this pitch thing," or if, maybe quiet as kept, there was some component to the play where they were gonna pitch the ball around a little bit. I don't think that was the case, though. I just think they had a huge, costly, monumental brain fart, and I can see on the sidelines right behind Jacoby, uh, when he receives that pitch, Matt Patricia's clapping his hands, and I don't know if he's clapping his hands to say like, "Okay, good job," or then it quickly turns into horror, and he puts his hands up like, "Hey, no, 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 no!" Like, it was probably one of the most bizarre, heartbreaking ways you could lose a game, and with the playoffs on the line, and especially who the Patriots are and what they stand for, and then also the fact that they were the sufferers of the Miami Miracle 5 years ago, it's just even harder to believe.
Yeah, I mean, it's just in this day and age, you just don't see teams that aren't prepared, for that. It just you don't see a mental breakdown like that,
Yeah.
especially under a Bill Belichick coach team. That's why it was so crazy to see, and to watch his face as he walked off the field. I mean,
Whew.
I could. You've been around that coach. I mean, what must that locker room been like when he got in there?
Just dead silent. I think probably just shocked. Again, as one of their most trusted players that made this mistake. This would have hurt at home, but you got to get on the plane and fly back to New England after a 4 p.m. game. You're not going to get in until late. Just everything about it, losing to Josh McDaniels, having to go hug him at midfield as Bill and wait as he finished his conversation with Mac Jones, kind of waiting in line to hug Josh McDaniels. The whole thing was surreal, and just every way the knife could have been twisted, it was.
Well, my co-host couldn't be with us here tonight because Troy Geary is stuck in the snow, and well, what are you going to do when you get the Midwest weather out there? But he does have a couple of questions that he was able to send in to you, and we want to lighten up the mood of today. So here's a question from Troy, remotely stuck in the snow.
Hey Chris, Troy Gary. Sorry I couldn't be there today, but I still have a question for you. I'm stuck up near Canada in this frozen tundra weather. But I was wondering, did you have any family traditions or activities that you guys did around the holidays? Hope to see you at Super Bowl in Arizona during that week. All right, talk to you later.
Well, number one, I hope Troy gets unstuck. It's there, but it looks cold. It's funny. The biggest tradition for us around Christmas or Thanksgiving was always being adaptable, because my dad played, and sometimes he'd have to work on Christmas or Thanksgiving, and we would move things around, and sometimes we would do Christmas like after Christmas, or we do it a day or two before, and then like I can always remember like going to see my friends at whether it was school a couple days later, going for a sleepover with a buddy, and being like, "Merry Christmas," or, "How was your Christmas yesterday?" And everybody was like, dude, we did Christmas like when it was intended to be had on the day that it falls on the calendar. And for us, it was always just kind of like make it work because our family situation was a little bit different. So that was the biggest tradition for me. I don't come from a big family. I didn't have a bunch of cousins or uncles or anything like that. My family was pretty tight knit, so it was just about being together whenever we could, however we could.
And you talk about that family and the closeness of you and your dad and that support mechanism of him not only playing the game at a successful level, but being able to mentor you and teach
Yeah.
you and give you a lot of that. I mean, how important is that as we look and reflect on the holidays of how special you and your dad are as far as friends and father son?
I think that's the most important thing, the friendship part of it, and I think a lot of dads are watching their sons or their daughters go through, various stages of their athletic careers, and you should never it should never get lost in the process that you should be friends first, and that, like for me, the reward of that relationship and everything that my dad put into it is like now he's one of my best friends, and I count him as an adult as one of my best friends. Like kind of like a dad and a big brother to me. And when I was an NFL player, just having a guy that knew what I'd been through, and whether it was a win or a loss, what's important is how you actually played. And I think sometimes when things are good, your feeling of yourself can get inflated. But it's important for me to, after a game, call my dad. I used to couldn't wait to call him just to get the real truth about how he thought I played. Because coaches sometimes don't see it. Coaches have got a lot of people to coach and look at, and sometimes you can have a great game, in everybody else's eyes, have 2, 3 sacks, but you actually didn't play well the other 55 plays. And, just to get that honesty from my pops, I played with a lot of guys whose parents after the game would just all they'd be able to tell them was like, great game or sorry about the loss. And I would get, another dose of honesty. So, you get your coaches and all that sort of thing, but you also got this guy that knows exactly what you've been through. And I think, the pressure also of who he was and what he was able to accomplish certainly made my life harder at times, but it also made me better. I think in some ways, I had there were a lot of advantages to having a dad who played in the NFL, but there were also disadvantages when it comes to the way people would view your career or the lens with which they looked at your successes and failures. And for me, it always drove me to be tougher, thicker skinned, and like when I accomplished something, it kept me humble because I wasn't the only person in my family that did whatever I did. I have a Hall of Fame dad, so it always kept me grounded. And it also, I'm the third most talented athlete in my family, really, when you count my brother, who's just got loads of talent. And so for me, it just changed the lens with which I looked at everything, and it paid off. And having my dad as a friend now is really invaluable to me.
And before we go to break, now we're on this Christmas note. How much more enjoyable now is Christmas to see it through the eyes of your own family. You don't have the distraction of being on the road and traveling.
Yeah.
Grandpa can be around
Yep.
possibly now and
Yep.
things like that. So Christmas must mean a lot more, especially now as you watch it through Waylon and Luke's
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah, just having 2 young kids, 6 and 4, and being able to be there for them and being able to live a normal life in a lot of ways. You know, like when you're in the NFL, there's a lot of perks, but you do not live a normal life. You don't, you know, you're under pressure, you're under the gun, you're not there mentally even when you're away from the field. So even if I got the night off for Thanksgiving, in my head I got this cloud hanging over my head about what I need to do to perform and the pressures that wait for me at work the next day, or whatever it is. So I think for me, it's just experiencing what everybody else gets to experience, which is just, watching football, having some drinks, sitting on the couch, gambling on some games, being able to take my kids Christmas shopping, go pick out a tree, hang out with friends, that whole thing. Like Thanksgiving was never, it was a blip on the radar screen for me. But now that I'm retired, it's like my favorite holiday. And it's just like there's so many things that just kind of retirement you gave birth to for me, just like just giving me the freedom to live like a normal human being. And it's a big trade-off. You sacrifice a lot playing in the NFL and dedicating your life to your craft for 20 something years, and it starts in high school, because I was in high school. I played 4 sports, but after I finished basketball practice at 6 o'clock, I was in the weight room till 8:30. You know, so and all summer I was training, and when people were going on trips and that sort of thing, I was busting my ass. And I've missed weddings. I've missed I've missed being around my friends. I've missed all types of stuff over the years, and now just being able to live a normal life is kind of cool.
Well, as long as you didn't miss your own wedding, I think that was
I didn't
probably
miss
the
that one. I mean,
that was
I faintly remember it. Um, but yeah, so that's what this is all about for me, is getting back some of the lost time.
that's great. And we will continue our conversation with Chris Long joining us. Don't go away. We got to pay some bills, and I think Santa Dave is coming up. So stick with us on Gary Stein and Stevens.
Ho, ho, ho! Happy holidays! I'm Santa Dave from the Geary Stein and Stevens Show, and I'm getting ready to give all the good boys and girls Manscaped products, except there's one problem.
The problem is you can't keep Manscaped on the shelves in the stores. So go to manscaped.com, type in the code GSS Show, save 20%, and get the Manscaped products. And poof, overnight, we've got Manscaped products. How cool is that? That means that by popular demand, they had to fill these shelves, all of the amazing products from Manscaped. And as I said, you get 20% off using the code GSS Show. You don't have to come to the store. Go online to manscaped.com, put in the code GSS Show, and you can get all of the amazing Manscaped products.
Hi again, everybody. Dave Stevens from the Gary Stein and Stevens Show. And I'm on the road a lot covering professional teams like the Philadelphia Eagles here in this beautiful stadium, but I don't have a lot of time to eat. What I do use, though, is Athletic Greens 1. It's a great supplement that you can use every day to get that nutrition that you're missing. And you know what? If you're drinking those energy drinks, those monster drinks, those add up, where this costs just $3 a day. It's got over 75 vitamins and nutrients in it that it would take you so many pills and bottles to take, but it's all right here. You just put a couple of scoops in with the water. You mix it up with either lemon juice or what I like to use with frozen fruit. It tastes great. It makes you feel good. And, of course, it is going to make you live life better. So, Athletic Greens 1. If you want more information, go to athleticgreens.com/GSS. They'll give you a year's supply of vitamin D if you go to that website. So continue to follow Steven Stein and Gary, or Gary Stein and Stevens, wherever you go, but make sure you're taking Athletic Greens 1.
Alrighty, back for our second segment of joining me with Chris Long. And Chris, again, thank you for taking time out during, I know it's a busy holiday season, and you said you got all your Christmas shopping and everything done. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that that's ready. So we got one more question that will actually help kick off this next segment from Troy, who is again bound somewhere up in Canada. Troy?
How did your charity, the Waterboy Foundation, go from an idea to a reality?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. In 2012, I think it was, it was my first year with Jeff Fisher, and I remember meeting him in the office, and he had his pictures all laid out on the desk already, and there was this picture of him climbing a mountain, like some snow-capped mountain with Teddy Bruschi and some amputees. I think he had gone up there with some veterans, and um, I was like, "Where is that? Yeah, it looks fun. I like to climb mountains." I grew up in Virginia, and there's a lot of hiking up here and trekking, and I was like, "I'd like to try something like that." He's like, "That's Mount Kilimanjaro. It's really high. It's in East Africa." And I'm like, "Oh, there's snow in Africa?" He's like, "Yeah, check it out someday." I'm like, "I think I will. I think I want to go this off season." And he was like, kind of looked at me like I was crazy because they had just signed me to a really big deal. And I don't think he was excited about me going and climbing a mountain when he owed me all that money. But me and James Hall, who was like an older brother to me, defensive end for the Rams, went over to East Africa to climb this mountain. And James had just retired, and I was still active, and we had a great time on the mountain. It was a huge challenge, and we got down and just kind of like meeting the people, seeing the circumstance, seeing some of the things that were not available to people in the region that are available to us in abundance, and one of which being water, kind of moved me. And I wanted to start my foundation relatively soon. And I'm kind of a pragmatist where I believe that, like, if you have a cause where you can clearly illustrate how far your dollar goes, and the difference is clear. You can move mountains, and for me it was water. And I thought there was a niche in the NFL that had yet to be filled, and really in pro sports, where there was no alliance of people fighting for clean water. And if you know anything about the world, you know that, depending on where you live, access to water is not a guarantee, and it's really hard on families. It's really hard on children. Waterborne illness kills at that age. Diarrhea kills at that age in the region. A whole host of side effects that are negative for a society pop up when you don't have access to clean water. Kids are missing school with waterborne illness. Women and girls are gathering water. It's an undue burden on them, and so that cause spoke to me, and we started Water Boys. It's going on 10 years now. We've provided over 500,000 people with the gift of clean water since our inception. We've worked domestically, we've worked in Tanzania, we've worked in Kenya. We climb Kilimanjaro almost every year as a part of our Conquering Kili program, which unites veterans and athletes to tackle this mountain and raise money and awareness for the clean water crisis. And I'll be going up again in February, and climbing this mountain again. And just a big challenge, but something I'm passionate about. And I can't wait to go. Cliff Avrill's joining me. Orlando Franklin's joining me this year. Jabal Sheard's joining me. And we've got a
I
number of
really should climb that thing with you. You know
one of
that.
these days, Dave. Come on now. But I think you'd have a lot of fun, and it's a huge challenge. But again, at the end of the day, it's such a worthy cause, and there's a lot of causes you can give your money and your time to. But for me, clean water, the results are enormous. When you go to visit a village that doesn't have access, and then you go the very same day to a place that we put in a well, you can see the stark difference in the way of life. And really, there's an immeasurable part of this whole thing, which is that it gives people hope. And just having hope and having that one thing that you absolutely need to live taken care of frees you up to do so many other things and become upwardly mobile.
And that is, of course, waterboys.org. We showed the website. I can't say enough. How many wells are you guys up to now?
We're over 100 now. We're over 100 large solar powered wells. And these are wells that provide water for up to 5 to 7,000 people. And we're also, like I said, working domestically as well. There's a lot of people in the United States, 2 million people that don't have access to clean water. And that's just inexcusable. And so we're just chipping away at it.
And of course, you're joining us from the studios of your podcast. And I love listening to your podcast, watching it. It's the Green Light with Chris Long. You get a lot of great guests, but it's not just about sports. You get comedians and entertainers and politicians, and you actually get to talk about things. Whereas when you were a player, sometimes the PR people didn't want you saying things. Stacey James might have said, "No, I can't have you
Yeah, Stacy, yeah,
saying."
yeah,
So tell us a little bit about the podcast, and I know now we can know where we can see it and watch it. It's everywhere on Spotify and everything, but
yeah.
it does give you a chance to branch out, and people are shocked by some of the things you'll say.
Yeah, I mean, like, surprise, surprise, we got a lot to talk about, and not all of it's football. And I wanted to start something that is like a bunch of dudes, or just me and a couple people hanging out on a couch, and talking football and pop culture and anything that pops up. Football is obviously the anchor during the season. We do a big, Monday wrap up show. Tuesday, you get a guest with me and Bo Allen, one of my former teammates, will pop in and review Monday Night Football, or have somebody on. Like this week, we had Dawson Knox. Wednesday, it'll be me and Kyle. We'll have a guest on. It might not be a football guest. Like this week, it was Tom Segura, who's a great comedian, one of my personal friends who I really enjoyed getting to know. And then late in the week, we wrap it up with Stanford Steve and Macon, who's my co-host, one of my childhood friends. And so, for me, it's been an interesting process. I've had to learn a lot about myself. I've had to challenge myself. I've had to study. I've had to stay involved in the game. I've had to grind. And then on the business side of things, I've had to really just build this thing out. And, I don't want it to be just the Chris Long show. So I've been very intentional about adding people and pieces that can kind of like create a community feeling. And, for us, we have a little community right now that's growing. But we want people, when they pop on, to feel like, hey, these are normal people, whether they played in the NFL or not. I've got Nate Collins, who was a college teammate of mine, a pro player, Bo Allen, myself, Kyle. There's, at least four of us in the orbit who played in the NFL. And then there's regular people. And it's just this melting pot of different interests. And I think most people sit there and listen. They say, like, yeah, this feels like me and my friends on the couch talking ball, or whatever else it is. So that's what I enjoy, coming to work and grinding it out and answering the bell. But I also just enjoy having conversations when it gets down to it, and that's what I do for a living now, and I'm enjoying it.
Well, I'm enjoying this conversation. We're going to take another quick break. We'll come back, talk a little current football, find out Chris's thoughts on some of the current players and a couple of his ex teammates. So you're watching Geary Stein and Stevens, a special holiday edition with Chris Long.
We told you all year long, and now we have to holler. We ruined all our clothes and scratched out all our hearts. So freshly dressed, that's the sign to go. With hundreds of amazing shirts and places to spend your dough. Oh, freshly dressed, will light your shopping load. And save you more when you check out the GSS show code. The GSS show code.
Merry Christmas, Pete.
Merry Christmas, Mom.
I think there's one more present for you.
It's a Manscaped package with lotions and sprays and trimmers. And where's the lawnmower? Hey, there's a note. Dear Pete, may you have a Merry Christmas and a smooth New Year. Oh! Shop now at manscaped.com.
Oh, of course, Manscaped and all of our wonderful people. We thank you, AG1. I've got all the Manscaped stuff by the tree. It's got that good feeling of forced sponsorship, but we are thankful for everybody that sponsors us, and I'm thankful Chris Long has joined us today. And Chris, we talked about, you knew in your mind when it was time to walk away. You could have played a little longer. You probably could have played two more seasons or three, and the money would have been there. But yet now this season, when you're looking and you're seeing a guy like Tom Brady, who you played with, you played against. Is that writing on the wall? Do you think he still has it for next year? I mean, they're still in playoff contention, but man, he's been around a long time.
Yeah, I think Tom's got another year in him. I really do, and I don't think Tom would want to end this way. Um, on one hand, it's really hard to walk away at the right time. And for me as a position player without the legacy of somebody like Tom Brady, it was easier to find that right time. Like for me, it was easy to exit stage left after 2018 in Philly because I didn't want to pick up and start somewhere else. Philly was not going to afford me the same opportunities on the field, and I'm a football player and I want to play. The reason that I play the game is for Sunday, especially at my age where I was. And so, I think Tom's equation is a little more complicated. But I think for Tom, if he can find the right situation next year with a good solid team that's built in a way that is quite the opposite of the way this team was probably constructed this year and doesn't have some of the same bad luck that they've had. I think that you could see Tom play another year and play well. And I
Is the
think for Tom,
49ers in that scenario now with everything? I
I think
mean,
the Niners
Mahomes?
might be in that scenario, but I also think the Niners might find the right guy. I mean, like maybe Brock Purdy's their guy, maybe it's Trey Lance. I was thinking, and this is me, the fan, wouldn't it be fun if the Patriots, who are probably going to axe Matt Patricia, bring in a dynamic offensive coordinator of Tom's choosing or something, revamp the offensive line a little bit, get one game changing wide receiver. You've got a great defense. There'd be something poetic about finishing up there. I don't know how he feels about that or how Bill feels about that, but that could be fun. I know people talk about the Titans. They've talked about the Titans before. I don't know if that's a huge upgrade there. The Raiders have been talked about. I think the Colts, it's going to be interesting to see what they do next year. But I think Tom has. If you're asking, is he good enough to play another year? I do think he's good enough to play another year. I think he's played poorly at times this year, but also that offense is not set up to succeed. They don't have a lot of speed. They were missing Gronk a lot. They've had trouble in the red zone. They've had injuries. You bring in Julio Jones, it's like he's in, he's out. Godwin off an ACL. The whole thing. They've been missing that really dynamic, fast slot guy, that little shifty guy. Their offensive line, obviously, the interior especially, which is so important to him, has not been very good. And then they lose Wirfs late in the season. It's just an ideal situation for him, and I'd be interested to see if he wants to play another year, what he thinks the best situation would be.
Well, give me that player's psyche perspective too, because there's a quarterback in New England that is the starting quarterback, and he's hearing these rumors, and it's like, so they really don't have the confidence in me that they'd bring, you know, Tom Brady back, and like, what is he going through mentally?
Well, and if you're Mac Jones, just in general, you're just like, I'm not set up to succeed this year. I've got two offensive coordinators, which is a tough deal, and they're not lifetime offensive coaches. I mean, you have Joe Judge and Matt Patricia, and I don't think there's a lot of talent in New England. And here's a guy a year ago who Josh McDaniels had looking like the quarterback of the future. So I think Mac Jones is an interesting study on context mattering in the NFL. What you have around you can change, and the scheme can change, and the entire consensus opinion on you can change because of that. And I think if you're Mac Jones, you're kind of pissed off at what you've had to deal with this year, and I think he'd be right to feel that way. But that's the NFL. There were a number of years where I wasn't in the right situation. I was drafted by a team that wasn't very good. That it was really hard to succeed as a part of those St. Louis Rams teams. So I'm empathetic to guys feeling like, hey, I'd be a lot different if I was in a different situation. But also, it's the reality in the NFL.
And we're watching for our listeners, we're watching a little bit of Chris Long's time with the Patriots and the Rams, and I still can't call them the St. Louis Rams. I feel like it's like you forget all these teams have moved around so much and
Yep.
everything, but it was still great to watch you play out there, and the way you carried yourself on the field, and just the way you just put in that effort every time, and you became such a leader and instrumental to Super Bowl championship teams. But I know today is kind of a sad day, and again, depends on when you're listening to this, but we lost one of the greats of all time.
Yeah.
We just found out that Franco Harris, on virtually the eve of the anniversary of the 50th celebration of the Immaculate Reception, and I just wonder your thoughts on him. I'm sure your paths crossed a few times. I know he
Yeah.
played before your time, but still, he's a legend. That Walter Payton, Franco Harris. These are the guys that anybody wanted to be like when they were kids.
Yeah, well, I mean, you talk about franchises in the NFL, there's not very many that have a richer history than the Steelers, and he's on the Mount Rushmore probably of those players that wore that uniform. If you ask the fans, like who are the most famous Steelers of all time, I mean, he's one of them, and also was just such a great guy off the field. I met him at the Man of the Year stuff, and he was just such a gracious dude. He was so humble and he took time to talk to me and he seemed really engaged in the conversation. He had no reason to spend any time aside stage BSing with me, but I'll never forget getting a chance to meet him. And he was just such a legend and meant so much to so many really rabid Steelers fans. And yeah, like you said, on the eve almost of the Immaculate Reception and the whole thing, he's a part of the game's fabric. And I know it's bittersweet to talk about him today because you lost him, but there's so many great Franco Harris stories and hearing people share them and their memories of his career. It's what the game's about, man. There's some guys that are just larger than life, and he was one of them.
And I was so lucky to, I've gotten to become friends with Rocky Blyer, another Pittsburgh legend, and he helped get Franco and Rocky on my show, and we just talked about so many fun things and stuff, and that was just 2 years ago. And
Yeah,
still in our lives as we advance, 72, 73 is still.
pretty young.
Yeah, you still got some time in front of you,
Yeah,
so, it's
yeah,
it's really tough, and, he's not gonna be around this weekend when, basically that play, I think, is one of the most iconic plays that kinda put NFL back on the map. It kinda
yeah,
started that excitement and that frenzy of like, "Hey, this game's kinda cool," and it really set the tone for the '70s and '80s and then ESPN and all these things that had to start covering you guys, so yeah, such a loss for the NFL world.
no question, man.
But, you know what? On the bright side, if you like today's show, of course, now you guys can watch us on Remote TV being streamed. So if you want to do something and you've got your uncle and your aunt and everybody around this Christmas, you get tired of seeing them drink too much or eating too much eggnog or anything like that, you can watch Geary Stein and Stevens on your TV at yourhometv.com. We'll be having Chris Long here as soon as we can get it out tonight to put it on there. And again, we thank everybody for your support, your love, turning this little show into something where again we get such amazing people. I love being able to call in favors to my friends and stuff like that. Chris, it's been awesome to have you spend a little
Yeah.
time with us, and I'm going to give you 30 seconds or a minute to just say happy holidays to whoever you want out there. And again, tell us how we can find you, follow you, and continue to watch you on all the things you do. Waterboys.org. Don't forget that. Of course, if you're in the giving mood this holiday season,
Yeah.
just go to waterboys.org, dump some money in there because, again, what he's doing, you don't get enough credit. You don't become man of the year if you're not making an impact. So thank you so much, Chris.
Well, thanks, Dave, and I appreciate you having me on. And, happy holidays. And happy holidays to all the football fans out there, man. We all root for different teams, but even happy holidays to the Dallas Cowboys fans this weekend as the Eagles get ready to play the Cowboys in that showdown. I'm just so appreciative of everything that football has given me, and a lot of it has been meeting great people, whether they're fans or whether they're people like Dave Stevens. So appreciate you, love your show, and hope to catch you again soon.
Okay, but I got to put you on the spot. Is your former team, the Eagles, are they the team that's probably going to be standing there in Arizona grabbing the trophy?
I think it's most likely, especially because there's the great teams in the AFC. There's a couple of them with flaws. If Jalen can get back healthy, I think the biggest impediment to that is the San Francisco 49ers. But outside of that, I feel like they have the best team in football, top to bottom. So hopefully Jalen can get back healthy because that's what we want to see. We want to see the best of the best out there on the field.
All right. Well, best of love and admiration and everything for the holidays for you, your sons, your wife, everybody who puts up with your cantankerousness sometimes when you're out with you. No, I'm just
Yeah,
joking.
no, it's true.
Can't wait to see you again in Arizona. And again, thank you everybody out there watching and listening. You still got time, those stocking stuffers. go to manscaped.com, type in the GSS show code for 20% off. And of course, if you want to look good like me and you see me dancing all the time, that's because I'm wearing fresh, clean threads, just like the one I have on today. And if you're going to eat crap, make sure you start doing the right thing by eating or drinking AG1, depending on what you do. I do it with the fresh fruit and things like that. So for myself and, of course, my buddy who hosts Greenlight with Chris Long, you got to make sure you catch that on Spotify, all the podcasts, and you can watch it on his social media. It's out there everywhere. So for myself, Chris Long, this is Dave Stevens wishing everybody a happy holidays. Thank you once again. Stay safe. Don't eat too much. And, of course, be kind to everybody out there. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.